Hey guys, John here from the esports department. Taking a look over the first league slate back. We are back with the LPL. First slate back, I've already imported the projections from the esports department, compensated for captain, put them in at every position with only the players that are playing. And I'm just going to do like a quick run through of how you'd look at this slate. So let's start with the odds. EDG minus 185, Sunning minus 200 as the two favorites on the slate. If you're playing cash games, just to talk about ownership and how to run those types of things, if you're going to play cash games, I think it's pretty obvious. You have two big favorites here. I would stick with Sunning and EDG. If you're going to play GPPs, though, you have two underdogs here that are not huge underdogs, and I think I like finding yourself on an underdog in one of the GPPs if you're going to play GPPs for sure. More specifically, if you'll notice, WE is plus 135, LNG plus 140. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see WE have 2 or 3 times the ownership that LNG has. I think WE had a little bit run at the end of last season. People were starting to get on them, starting to get a little bit hyped. It's for a decent reason. I think they were like kind of a bright team with some younger players that could have improved a lot over the course of the offseason. EDG Scout has not looked as good as time has gone on. Mako's still looked very good, but they're a team that could be vulnerable to somebody like WE, so I can see why people are going to probably pile on WE as a major underdog on this slate. But LNG is only just slightly more of an underdog, and I think you're going to see them at almost no ownership. I talked about it a little bit on the Gold Card podcast, but once a team is in a certain type of position like LNG was in last season, where they're clearly not going to make the playoffs and things are clearly not working, they're going to give up a little bit. Like, things are going to get worse in the comms. I think a lot of what you saw at the end of the last season for LNG could probably be attributed to that. I still don't think they're a good team. I still think Sunning is by far the favorite to win this matchup, but I think it's completely reasonable to throw LNG in some GPPs. In fact, I think I would recommend it if you're playing large field GPPs. I think you're going to get very low ownership on LNG, and plus 140 is just not that big of an underdog, especially in a 3-game series. So I'm definitely a fan of finding yourself on LNG. If you're not going to play LNG and you're playing GPPs, I think I would play WE. I don't think I'd bother playing Sunning EDG in the big field GPPs. If you're playing something like 50 to 100 players, yeah, go ahead and put the Sunning EDG in there. But if you're going to play a big field GPP, I think I would want to find myself on one of these two, and I think I would lean towards LNG, just because I think, like I said, that despite having very similar odds, they're going to be probably 1/3 or 1/4 the ownership. So let's take a look and we'll go through combination by combination. So if we were playing EDG LNG, let's start with that. Hold a second. What's the best way for me to go doing this? Okay, let's start EDG LNG. I hate that it moves around when I take somebody out, though. I have to make sure I'm not removing anybody I don't mean to be removing. Okay, EDG LNG. So we can kind of do a projections comparison. The same thing I was doing in my other videos to kind of see where the advantages are at. So let's go top, jungle, mid, AD carry, support. I guess there's not really any point in putting those, but then we'll do EDG LNG. So in the top lane we have Audi. Let's just do it this way. Audi, who's going to project at 80.77, and Chenlun, who's going to project at 85.79. So a plus 5.02 for Chenlun. So we go LNG plus 5.02. In the jungle, we will have EDG at 87.78 and LNG at 82.61. So a plus 5.17 for EDG. In the mid lane, it's going to be a plus 5.38 for LNG. At AD carry, 3.16, 3.67 for LNG. And at the support position, it's going to be plus 3.4 for EDG. So this gives you a couple different options if you're thinking about trying to build. I still recommend, even sometimes if the projections, if you're playing in smaller field GPPs especially, I would still recommend sticking to like the 4-2 strategy. They've given us a setup here where it looks like the optimal lineup would be light captain. I assume we can fit this, but I'm just going to play through this thing just the same way I would if I was building. So it would be light captain with hope. And then we'd want to play EDG. If we were going straight off of projections, we would play Mako, and then we would play Maple and Chenlun, and then we would get our choice on the teams. The team score projections are not up on the site yet, but I'm being completely honest with you when I say that I will almost never factor that in, except for on big slates where I might one-off the team slot. Generally speaking, if these teams both win, I would expect EDG's victory to be more one-sided, so I would play EDG more likely to get 2-0 than LNG, I think. So this is a lineup that makes sense to me. Light captain with Chenlun, Junjia, Maple, Hope, Mako, and Edward Gaming. I do think if you're like 4-2s, if you're playing LNG, are probably all right. And so I think you could probably change, even though the support projection for EDG is a little bit higher, sometimes I will switch that around if I want to try to get a heavier stack on one side of the game, because it is still likely that one game ends up higher scoring than the other. So you could maybe switch Mako out and go over to like Iwandi there, or you could switch Junji out and go over to XX. XX is a notoriously low scoring player, but that's how it looks when you pair up those two teams. 80 carry captain, completely doable. Let's look at the comparisons between 80 carry and mid projections. Hope versus Scout is like +10. And Light versus Maple's like +7. So it's a pretty big advantage to 80 carry captains. Makes you want to stick there. Maybe if you wanted to try to get some lower ownership, you could go with something like the 3-3 like we were talking about, because it doesn't look like this is a great spot to try to go down in captains. There's like not really super close projections between the mids and the 80 carries. So it seems like the 80 carries are the right thing to do. If we were going to play this in a mass multi-entry, and let's say we did want to stick with the 80 carry captains, let's kill everybody else off except for the 280 carries. And we did just want to see how many lineups we could come up with. Hope it's keeping... I forgot to cut the players from the other positions, my bad. Sunning in WE. Sunning in WE. Sunning in WE. There we go. Okay. Now we go back. Let's see how many lineups we can come up with. Nothing. EDG, LNG, EDG, LNG, LNG. I think I have everything correct there. Is it that... I have that set correctly. Oh, I had a team stack set over from earlier. My bad. So looks like you get 28 lineups. So that's a pretty decent MME right there. There's an investment for you. You can just get 28 lineups out of the straight 80 carry captains. That's going 3-3s, 4-2s, everything you can do. That seems completely reasonable to me. If you wanted to throw in some additional lineups, I think the best thing would probably just be to include the mid captains. I'll just double check their projections. They do both project better than the junglers, so you could throw in the mid captains if you wanted, but there's 28 lineups if you're trying to go LNG and EDG. And I think 80 carry captain by far makes the most sense with these two teams in particular. Okay, let's go back and get everybody back in the pool here. And we'll move on to the next combination. We don't need to put those guys back in. We don't need to put Plex back in. And top laners. We can still get rid of Flandre and Zhao Zhang and Poss. over in the captain section. I'll have to redo that in a minute, but we'll do it based on who we're going to choose as our next team, so we don't need GG. Okay, so now let's do EDG with their other comparison, EDG with Sunning. So now we will keep EDG, we'll get rid of LNG, keep Sunning, and we'll get rid of WE. And we can get rid of the people that aren't going to play. There we go. And view. Boom. So here's our player pool for EDG and Sunning. In the top lane, we can just go position by position, just like we did before. We don't need LNG players or WE players. Looks like we're going to have plus 1.61, 2.38. 2.38 for EDG. EDG Sunning plus 0.79. Very small edge there. In the mid lane, that's Sunning plus 2.17. The carry position. Let's see. 0.16, 1.16, 1.39. And at support, wow, look at that, 0.51. Okay, so this is actually like the perfect setup to build a 4-2 as well. You have like just an ideal setup here because there's two players from Sunning that you would want on your team, and EDG, especially if you can get AD carry captain, which we're about to find out. So let's try it first, just the most optimal way that it can be done, which according to this is Huanfeng captain with Audi and Junjia and Angel and Hope and Sword Art, and either team, wouldn't matter which team we used, but neither team is going to let us get there. So we can't get an AD carry captain on those two teams, at least not with Sunning's AD carry. Is Hope cheaper or more expensive than Huanfeng? He's more expensive, so we know that's not going to work. So we're playing at best mid captain with these two teams. Scout, let's see, if we were playing mid captains, it's still Angel that would be number one, so let's go with, let's try Angel captain with Audi, with Junjia, with Scout, with Huanfeng, and with Mako. That leaves us exactly 5,000 left over, which still isn't going to be enough for either Edward Gaming team or Sunning team. If I was, who's more expensive between Angel and Scout? Angel is more expensive. Do we save enough money? I don't think so, but do we save enough money if we switched over to Scout as our captain? And put Angel in the middle? Save $100, which still leaves us 100 off. So this is a spot, though, where you could start mixing up the... start mixing up your build instead of trying to do a 4-2. I'm guessing we might be able to get an AD carry captain if we went down to something like 3-3, so let's try that out. In captain, the preferred AD carry would be Huanfeng, who's cheaper anyway than Hope. So, but let's get those guys in there. And if we go to the top lane, a 200 salary difference for EDG. In the jungle, they are even up. In the mid lane, 200 salary difference towards Angel. So probably you'd need to have Scout in order to have any chance for this to work. Sword Art here. If we go cheaper and go Bin, then it wouldn't matter who we chose here, so we'd want to go with Junjie. And that leaves you $5,200, which would be enough to get Sunning Team, and Sunning Team would fit. So there's a Huanfeng Captain. If you wanted to play a Huanfeng Captain, you can get it with a 3-3 there. Given the averages for these teams, let's see, projections being 98 and 96 versus 90 and 92. Let's just see how it plays out. Projected points for that lineup, let's just take a couple notes here. 629.8 projected points for this lineup. If we switch over, I don't think there's a way we're going to be able to beat that, but let's give it a try. What happens if we switch over to something like Angel Captain? If we can make some upgrades at the other positions and see if that makes any sort of difference. With this one, I'm not sure it will because the differences are just so low from player to player. But just in case, let's have a look. Because this would probably allow us to get Audi. Now we could still take Junjie, who's our highest projected there. The AD carry position, we'd prefer Huanfeng, and he's cheaper, so that would work. And then at support, we can upgrade to Mako. We still don't have enough money there, so we would still have to take a loss somewhere. We'd rather take the loss at support. And then if we put Sunning Team in there, 624.8, so yeah, we're losing a whole 5 points there. So it seems pretty clear like the optimal lineup for those two teams, if that's what you're trying to play, is the 3-3 with Huanfeng Captain. That's the best you can do, I think, given the projections that we have here. If you did want to try to go with a 4-4, or a 4-2 rather, you should be able to do that. Let's see, Huanfeng Captain. Just switch over to Bin. That's actually the biggest edge on the entire slate is Audi, so you probably want to stick with Audi. Very small edge here, so this would be a good spot to get your fourth Sunning player if you wanted. And then Angel, Huanfeng. Oh, his Huanfeng's already red, just already in there. So to get a fourth, you'd go down to Sword Art, which doesn't cost you almost anything there. Still not going to get you EDG Team, though, which is where you'd have to jump up to. So the 3-3 looks like the safe cash line. The 3-3 we outlined there that ended up at, was 635, 628, something like that in points. Let me put that back up one more time, just so that I can get that back on my mind here. How did we get there? We had to go Bin, Junjie, Angel, no, we had to go Scout, Hope, Sword Art, yeah, and then we can put Sunning Team in there. So I think this is the highest projection you're going to be able to get off the top of my head. I'm not sure you can beat that. So that's what I would go with. That seems like a safe cash lineup. If you're going for GPPs, it is still a 3-3, which is usually has less ownership than the 4-2s. I still, with these teams, once again, you could try mid-captains more so with these teams than we did with the first combination, just because the mids are a little bit closer to the AD carries overall with these teams. So maybe something like an Angel captain makes sense to me. Scout and Angel are both the kinds of players that can definitely have pop-off games. So if you're going to try to do something there, I think that makes sense. Let's go on to our next pairing. So we've done the EDG pairing, so let's go ahead and do the WE pairing. So we'll do WE and LNG first. And of course, you can't just do this. Somebody pointed it out to me yesterday, and it's totally true. I've used it before. I don't know why I wasn't using it, but I'll show you guys how to use that. Let's do select all. Everybody's in the pool. You can just go to filter teams up here. And if we're going to do WE and LNG, then we can just click off Sunning and EDG, and it'll just brick everybody off. Then we still have to go through and get rid of the players that aren't playing. Dwan, Poss is not playing, Plex is not playing, Shanks is not playing, Flandre is not playing. Okay, so now we got LNG WE. Let's try that out. Highest projections is Zhumeng. I think he's the highest projection on the entire slate, if I remember correctly. With this combination, since we have two underdogs here, you should be able to get any combination you want of players. Let's see how close they line up when it comes to like mids versus AD carries and such. Oh, I forgot to bring back my other players here. Shenlong and Morgan. XX and Beishang, Teacher Ma and Maple, Light and Jumeng, Iwandi missing. Okay, so now we got everybody right back in the pool, but looking at the differences, over 100 for both AD carries, including 105 for Jumeng, only in the 90s again for the mid laners. In the jungle, you can see Beishang actually outscores Teacher Ma. This is one of the spots I really, really like, where Beishang captains make a lot of sense to me in GPPs. He still is not close to outscoring Jumeng on average, but if he is more likely to outscore Teacher Ma, then that makes him like your second choice, whereas most people's second choice will be Teacher Ma. So just in case Jumeng has a bad game, then he becomes the most likely person to do well in that series, and people will mostly be on Teacher Ma instead as a second option. So I like Beishang captain as a GPP option, especially in like a big GPP. That's with any WE lineup. That will be true when we switch over to the other combination as well. In the top lane, let's map it out real quick. In the top lane, Shenlun, let's see, 0.02 plus 2, 2.81. LNG plus 2.81. If we go into the jungle, huge discrepancy in the jungle. WE plus 7.39, 10.39, 10.78. Huge discrepancy there. You don't see discrepancies like that very often, but it means when you're playing these combinations, if you want, you get pretty close to lock Beishang, and I wouldn't be too mad at you. In the mid lane, advantage goes to Maple, and it would be plus 3. It's plus 2.98. AD carry, it's going to be WE favored. 4.59, 4.49, 4.59, 4.68. And then when you go to support, another huge advantage here, this time for WE. And that's WE plus 12.15. So an even bigger advantage in the support position, missing versus Iwandi. So if we're going to optimize these two teams, you can just use the optimizer, but I'm just running through everything. So our highest score would be Jumeng. If our highest score is Jumeng, then we're also going to have to play Light. In the top lane, Shenlun gets the advantage. In the jungle, it's Beishang by a lot. In the mid lane, it's Maple. At support, it's missing. And for teams, we've talked about it before, they won't really make any effect on my decision. I would play the team that I think is more likely to win heavily, which would be WE. So you're going to leave a lot of money on the table there, but there's a 671.6 projection if those two teams win, which, as you can tell, is larger than the projection we had for the EDG Sunny lineup. So if these teams win, we would expect them to outscore what the favorites would get if they win, which is going to be pretty standard. It's why the projections video that I talked about before is so important for people to watch, because the underdogs are likely to outscore the favorites if the underdogs were to win and the favorites were to win in two alternate universes. The underdogs are more likely to outscore. So here again we have another 3-3 setup, which we've been coming to pretty commonly. If we look back over here, if you wanted to go for the 4-2, the best spot for that would be to switch over the top laner. So you just switch this to LNG, go over to here, take out Shenlun and put in Morgan. This would be the better 4-2 lineup, would be to go with Light and Maple. I don't think this is bad at all. Like, let me switch the captains real quick. I don't think this setup is bad at all for this slate if you're playing GPP. Let me see how many combinations you get out of Light and Jumeng captains, because I think this is like a pretty good setup to have in the Titan today. Now, of course, if every single person that watches this video does this, then it won't be a good setup anymore because of the ownership. But yeah, same thing, you're going to get 28 lineups, so I didn't realize you could build every combination with the other teams as well. But this is a decent setup, 28 lineups, all 80 carry captains, and they have very high projections, both over 100s. it's early in the season. It's really hard to tell if things are going to be weird like that. So I don't really see any reason why this wouldn't be a solid Titan or Minimax setup for you. It doesn't happen that often, but when it does, the amount of money that you're going to win is pretty huge. But LNG and WE, pretty straightforward, same thing. These are all 80 carry centric teams. It's not always going to be like that as we get other teams, but these are all teams where the 80 carries are definitely projecting the highest. So let me get everybody back in again. Bring all the teams back, and we'll go to the last combination, which would be WE Sunning. WE Sunning. Real quick run through to take back out the players that aren't starting. Poss goes, Plex goes, Shanks goes. 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we got everybody we need. And let's take a look. Just quickly, I like to just browse around. So mids both in the 90s, low 90s, 80 carries ranging between 98 and 105. So once again, we've talked about it, but all these teams are super 80 carry centric. If you were going to play optimal for these two teams, it would be Zhu Meng, Wanfang. Let's figure out the other positions. Top, the advantage 4.59. WE plus 4.59. In the jungle, Beishang, let's see, 0.1 plus 6, 0.01 plus 6, 6.4. In the mid lane, very, very close, but it's WE again, this time plus 0.22, 0.23. At 80 carry, a big advantage, 1.77, 6.77, 6.87, 6.96. I do occasionally mess up my math when I'm doing that, guys, so feel free to double check yourself, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. And then another big advantage in the support position for WE. So WE is just a significantly higher scoring team in general. 5.73, 8.73, 9.23, 9.26. So WE favored at every position. If you had to pick a second player to play from Sunning, it would be mid lane. So that would mean our optimal lineup would be Morgan, Beishang, Angel, Missing, Sunning team. 663 projection. Leaves 1,400 on the table. I always prefer to leave money on the table if I can, if it's still a good setup. You have to like that. So that would be the setup for that team. It should be the same number of captains. I don't think there's any combination of lineups that wouldn't work with these 80 carry captains, so it should be 28 lineups again. But that's the different various breakdowns. As far as what I like for the slate, I really think you should be with an underdog if you're playing GPPs. If you're playing cash games, Sunning and EDG is fine. They have the lower ceiling. We saw it on the projections, but they're the most likely to win. GPPs, I would find myself on a lot of LNG and WE. Let me know, guys, if you have any more types of stuff you'd like to see from these videos, or if you different kinds of information you'd like to see. I'm kind of, as the KPW and DPL sheets get running, I restart them for every season. So they don't have any information in them yet. I don't like using previous season data for that. So for that, we will start updating those as the season goes on. But right now, no such data. So let me know if you guys would like any more information, and good luck on the slate. Have a good one.